Welcome to this edition of In-Depth Alaska. I'm Tracy Sinclair. Senator Lisa Murkowski, along with the rest of the Alaska Congressional delegation, held a press conference on Wednesday to discuss what they say are changes needed to aviation safety in Alaska. Digital Content Manager Joey Klecka sat down with Senator Murkowski to talk about those changes that she thinks are needed, as well as her support for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as Health Secretary. Here is that conversation.
If you could just expand on what you think needs to happen to kind of improve this aviation infrastructure technology here in Alaska, and just kind of expanding about what you think needs to happen.
Yeah. Well, we're a state that relies on aviation. When you've got 80 some odd percent of your communities that are not connected by road, we got to figure out how we get around, and it's in the air. And so making sure that that aviation safety is a priority, needs to be a priority of all of us. And we know we've got weather conditions that are unlike most any place, and it's challenging, but our technologies will help us get through even some of the toughest conditions, or at least advise us that this is a day that we just stay grounded. And so making sure that that we have systems that not only work, but that are current and up to date. We have a weather observing system in Alaska. It's the Automated Surface Observing Systems, and it's the primary surface weather network. It's managed by the National Weather Service and the FAA, and this supports aviation, right? So you're going to be flying safer if we know what the conditions are. The challenges that we have, and I learned all this when I convened a group of those in the aviation sector, convened them last year in Yakutat, when I learned that once again the AWAS system was down in Yakutat, basically grounding the Alaska Airlines jet, grounding traffic going north and south, and realizing that this happens on a far too frequent basis. Why is it happening? And we learned that it was everything from having inadequate connectivity. So in other words, we didn't have the broadband backup that we needed. You had a system where NOAA owns the weather observing system, but relies on the FAA for the communications and power to that. So you've got a complexity of jurisdiction that complicated things. We have, as I mentioned yesterday at the press conference, with our AWAS systems, which are the automated weather observing systems that are sprinkled all over the state. These systems, there's about 150 of them around Alaska. On any given day, you've got about a third or more they're down, they're out. And so as we were driving over to the press conference yesterday, I said, how many of our AWAS systems are down right now? And we're told 51 of 150 are down. Now, and so think about what that means. That means that this automated system that we have spent a lot of money on, apparently you've got it's about $2 million per unit to build these out. So we're counting on them. They're expensive, but they're out. Why are they out? Maybe it's just a level of connectivity. Maybe it's a part. Maybe somebody hasn't been able to fly out to get there. But the challenge then that you have is you don't have this great technology to rely on for your safety. So what we're trying to do is figure out how we can build a better safety system, do it rapidly, and literally get it up in the air. One of the things that we're doing right now on a pilot is something that we call VWAS. This is an alternative to the AWAS, and it's visual weather observation systems. These are much less expensive. I'm told about 150,000 each, and it's a weather camera as well as weather reporting. It works in conjunction with certified weather observers, but it's not as sophisticated. All right, it's just not as sophisticated. But will it give us more data, more reliability to allow for greater safety? Yes. And so we've got. They're doing the testing in 5 different communities right now. It began last year. The problem that we've got is we can't get the certification from FAA for this VWAS system. So I'm not giving you a very clear picture, because the reality is it is not clear. You've got confused jurisdiction between who owns systems and who powers systems. You have systems that are not operational, even though they're new and they're expensive. We're trying to do a more expedited process at lower cost, but we can't get certification for that yet. So we have a whole bunch of barriers that are holding us back when it comes to safer skies. So what I've shared with you is the weather reporting issues that we're dealing with. We have put in place in the last year's FAA reauthorization some significant steps to provide for safer skies. And it's everything like holding the FAA reliable or accountable for more reliable weather systems. It's requiring ADS-B traffic tracking. So there's a whole series of things that we need to do. What we haven't done yesterday, and you heard me say this, is we haven't appropriated to it. So in order for us to put in place all of these good provisions within our FAA reauthorization, we've got to go ahead and fund them. I don't even remember what your initial question was, Joey, because you got me going. There's so much that is overlaid on this. But what it comes down to essentially is we don't have enough of the systems that we need to give us the reliable weather data and the eyes in the skies, whether it's weather cams going through Merrill Pass or whether it's our AWAS systems that need to be need to be fixed.
Yeah, you mentioned VWAS, $150,000 each, you said?
Yep.
And my question is, real quick, approximately how many are you looking at for those?
Well, right now we have to get them. They need to go through the testing process to verify that that they can be used throughout the national airspace. So they're testing this system in Titlik, in Palmer, in Eek, and in Healy River. They've also begun testing one in Winston-Salem. So what the problem is there's no estimate yet on when the certification process is going to be completed. So we tried to get that pinned down with FAA in June or July, whenever we met in Yakutat. Just tell us how long it's going to take, because they've been doing this for a couple of years. Because if these lower cost systems actually work, if they're better than nothing, because right now, like in places like Anaktuvik Pass or Bettles, where your AWAS has been out for not only months, but close to a year, then if we can't fix that, can we get a less expensive system and put that up? It's not all the bells and whistles, but it's going to allow for greater safety. So you've got significant cost savings through a VWAS, and also one of the advantages I keep mentioning, you've got to have the broadband, you've got to have the connectivity there. The VWAS systems use satellite or cellular rather than underground copper wiring. So it's a different it's a different system when it comes to just how the system operates. So there's a lot of benefit to it, but we can't expand it to the places that we need it until we get the certification, because right now we've only got it in a test pilot phase.
Gotcha. Okay. On a more personal note, I was wondering if you had spoken with any of the families that were affected of the 10 people that were killed in this crash, and if you've spoken with any of the families or were working on reaching out to them. If has that happened yet?
Yeah, I have not spoken directly to the families, just respecting their privacy. I do have a personal connection. I have a nephew that flies for Bering Air, and it was his roommate who was the pilot who went down. And so I've had conversations with him, and I've also spoken directly with the operations manager there at Bering Air, Dave Olson, somebody that I have known for a long time. And these are hard conversations because the Bering Air family is really a family. They're very close knit, a great group of men and women, family operated business, and so this has just really hit them very, very hard, and it has hit the communities of both Nome, Unalakleet, and really all statewide. It is any aviation accident is a tragedy. We have far too many of them, but there's very few degrees of separation when you have something like this. So yes, I will be contacting the families, but again, just recognizing that it's been a very, very, very difficult time as their loved ones have come home, and now they're dealing with the process of how they move forward.
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to switch gears here real quick. I wanted to talk about and get your thoughts on some of Donald Trump's picks or his appointments for these. I guess some of his cabinet appointments, not his cabinet appointments, but you talk about Robert Kennedy. As for the health secretary, I know you put out a post this morning on it appears that you're tending to vote for him to be confirmed. There's still some concerns there. If you could kind of tell us what your vote is or what it was and what your concerns are with him.
Yeah, this has been a very hard decision for me because, well, I am very supportive of greater efforts to focus on reducing those cost drivers when it comes to our healthcare system, and really a greater desire that we focus on how we are all healthier, how we can prevent chronic diseases. This not only saves money, it's not about money, it's about quality of life. And I think we've really forgotten that in the discussions. It seems like all of our conversations about healthcare have been focused on who pays for the coverage of my exorbitant healthcare costs, instead of how do we be healthy people. We spend more per capita on our healthcare than any other nation out there, and unfortunately, we don't see better outcomes because of that investment. Why is that? This is one of the things that I think has captivated the country about Robert F. Kennedy's focus on healthy Americans, what it is that we need to do to avoid chronic disease, what we need to focus on when it comes to healthier foods. And so that part of it, I'm all over. But I will tell you, as a mom of two sons, for me and our family, vaccinations were what gave me the assurance as a mom that my kids were not going to be exposed to whether it was childhood diseases, whether it's measles, mumps, rubella, just the whole litany of immunizations that a child goes through. I was an informed parent. I wanted to know that the research that I was receiving from my pediatrician was something that I could rely on. And I wanted to know that my kids were going to be safe. And so I have had a real challenge with the fact that Mr. Kennedy has spent so much of his adult career kind of pushing back on vaccines, and not only pushing back, but in some instances actually promoting kind of an anti-vaccine campaign. And I don't think that is healthy. I think it's fair to question science, but when the data that has been out there, the research that has been out there is as conclusive as we have seen in so many of these with so many of these vaccines, to continue to question it, that I think is very, very challenging. So I had to balance this, and it was hard. And I will tell you, I've been going through this deliberation, talking with not only many people, talking with those who are very well informed in these areas, talking with Mr. Kennedy himself, going through all of the commitments that he has made publicly as well as on the record, about his commitment to ensuring that he does not attempt to influence the science and the data when it comes to vaccines, that he will not do anything to discourage the use of a vaccine or vaccine information. And so it was not an easy decision for me, but I think given the commitments that he has made to be fair and balanced with regards to vaccines, and his very clear direction on what he intends to do to really drive us to a better place when it comes to healthier outcomes for all Americans, that had influence. So your question was probably pretty simple, and I've gone on for a relatively long time, but I think that that's important, because a simple statement saying I'm going to support him doesn't reflect the real deliberation that went on here. It's he has elicited a lot of energy, let's say, from Alaskans. I have heard more on his nomination than any of the other Trump nominees, by many fold. And it's interesting how Alaskans have weighed in. It has been a significant number of Alaskans who support him and his views on making a healthier America. You balance that in as well, but this was a hard one. I'm going to be casting my vote for him when we have that opportunity, probably tomorrow. But I still have my doubts, and I have made clear to him that I have those doubts, and I'm going to hold him accountable to the commitments that he has made to me and to others.
Thank you to Senator Lisa Murkowski for sitting down with us, and thank you for listening to In Depth Alaska. Please like and subscribe to this podcast.